To surprise my best friend Vivian, I took an early flight and arrived at her place by 7. Entering the password to get in, I found that my usually late sleeping friend wasn't home. Accompanied by the sound of running water, a man's voice came from the bathroom. "The door's unlocked, come in." That voice. It kind of sounded like my husband Sean. I was startled by this sudden thought, then chuckled to myself. Voices tend to distort in the bathroom anyway, and besides, Sean and Vivian have never gotten along. There's no way they'd be together like that. But is Vivian hiding something big from me? When she gets back, I'm definitely going to ask her. Just as I was thinking this, the water stopped running in the bathroom, and someone started turning the doorknob. I quickly turned my back and called out, "I'm not Vivian, I'm her friend Josie." The person inside seemed stunned, the doorknob stopped turning, and no more sounds came from inside. I was mortified. Vivian's got a boyfriend and didn't even tell me, almost caught me live in the act. I hurried toward the door as if fleeing, but before I could reach it, the door opened by itself. Vivian stood at the entrance holding breakfast, her face full of surprise. "Josie, why are you back early?" I winked at her. "Isn't it because I figured out your little secret?" Vivian was about to reply when a man's voice came from the bathroom, interrupting her. "Vivian, come here." The voice sounded different from before, maybe I really had misheard. My best friend responded and walked over, and I instinctively glanced back. A figure wrapped in a towel flashed by, broad shoulders, narrow waist, the perfect alpha male physique, somewhat resembling my husband. What's going on today? Why do I keep thinking about Sean? Could it be because I'm going on a 2-month business trip and missing him too much? Sean is usually clingy, and Vivian often jokes that he's my human accessory, never leaving my side. This time, I'm going away for 2 months, and Sean's face immediately fell. We've never been apart this long since we got married, but his company is at a critical stage, so he can't come with me. After much coaxing, I finally managed to calm him down, but there was a catch. He insisted on a daily video call. If he found out I came back early and went to my best friend's place first, he'd definitely get jealous again. Back when Sean and I made things official and I introduced him to Vivian, those two were like fire and water, completely at odds with each other. Vivian thought Sean was cold and unfeeling, while Sean found Vivian's constant chattering unbearable, saying being around her was like stepping into a noisy market. Caught in the middle, I felt truly torn. But as they got to know each other better, they started competing for my attention, getting jealous over the smallest things. It was both frustrating and amusing. Now that Vivian has a boyfriend, this should stop. The 4 of us can even hang out together. Just as I was happily thinking this through, a sudden argument broke out from Vivian's bedroom. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly went over to knock on the door. "Vivian, what's going on?" The sound of the argument stopped, but my hands were sore from knocking, and the door still wouldn't open. I was afraid something had happened to Vivian inside. Just as I was about to kick the door, it finally opened. Vivian stood at the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed. I quickly rushed in to support her. "What's wrong? Did you have a fight with your boyfriend?" I looked around but saw no sign of the man. "Where is he? Tell me what happened, I'll help you teach him a lesson." Vivian hung her head. "Yeah, it would have been better if you had come in earlier." Suddenly, there was a beep, the sound of the electronic lock opening. I was about to step out to check, but Vivian grabbed me. "My boyfriend had something come up last minute, he left first." Her bedroom had 2 doors, I guessed the man had purposely left through the other one to avoid me. I was a bit upset. "Vivian, are you treating me like a stranger? You got a boyfriend and didn't even tell me, almost making me come face to face with him. Who is he? Do I know him?" Vivian leaned against the window, the light and shadow casting over her face, making her expression hard to read. "Because of his work, we can't make it public yet." I grew even more curious. Work? Could he be a celebrity? I put on a love-struck look, and Vivian laughed at me, pouncing over to cover my mouth. "You gossip queen. Why do you keep asking? After a while of teasing, Vivian's mood improved a lot. She said she wanted to freshen up in the bathroom. I had just sat down on the sofa when I heard a knock at the door. But before I could get up to open it, the door swung open on its own. What's going on? Wasn't the door locked? The delivery guy's voice was filled with confusion. Could it be that Vivian's boyfriend forgot to lock the door when he left? I quickly got up and walked over to help Vivian sign for the package. My eyes casually glanced over the delivery slip. Men's sleeping bag? Sean likes to sleep wrapped up in a sleeping bag, looking like a silkworm cocoon. I teased him about it, and he would always helplessly rub my head. Without the sleeping bag, I just can't fall asleep. But why did Vivian buy a men's sleeping bag? A mysterious boyfriend, a similar build, the same sleeping bag. Everything that happened today felt a bit unusual. Even with my thick skin, I sensed something was off. Vivian came out of the bathroom and took the package from my hands. I casually asked, "Vivian, are you living with your boyfriend now?" "Sort of," she said, shaking the package in her hand with an open tone. "He's picky about beds, can't sleep well if he's somewhere new. Your Sean always says he sleeps great in a sleeping bag, so I thought I'd buy one for him to try." I couldn't help but scoff at myself. What nonsense was I imagining? Then I teased, "Being so good to your boyfriend? But hiding things from me, your best friend? Don't tell me." Vivian paused. "What? Don't tell me I'm ranked below him? Because I'm telling you, I won't stand for that." She laughed and linked her arm with mine. "How could that be? You'll always be my best friend." "That's more like it." I pulled a gift box from my suitcase and handed it to her. "This is why I cut my business trip short. Open it and see." Vivian froze when she opened the box. Inside was a Hermes bag. Vivian's expression was stunned, tears glistening in her eyes, her lips trembling slightly. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I asked nervously. "Of course I do. How did you know?" Vivian threw herself at me and hugged me tightly. Before my business trip, I overheard her on the phone, wanting this bag. But the store was out of stock. I searched every boutique in the neighboring city and actually found one. To surprise Vivian, I stayed up 3 nights in a row and came back early. When I paid, the clerk said I was very lucky. This limited edition only had 2 in the world, and the other one had just been sold. Yes, I really am lucky to have Vivian as a friend. Vivian was my classmate in elementary school. Back then, I was introverted and often bullied by classmates. She always stood in front of me, protecting me. Later she transferred schools, but years later, we met again in high school. In senior year, when my brother got married and the family demanded a huge bride price, forcing me to drop out and marry, it was Vivian who helped me escape. We both got into university. I had good grades and always shared half of my scholarship with her. After graduation, my career quickly got on track, and I immediately introduced Vivian to a more promising top-tier company. We supported each other, not family, but closer than family. Suddenly, there was a dull thud in the room. "What was that noise?" I asked, about to get up and check. Vivian grabbed me firmly. "There's too much stuff in my room. It must have fallen because it wasn't put away properly. You're not allowed to go. Otherwise, you'll just laugh at me again." She said that as she got up and headed toward the bedroom. I sat back down. "If you don't want me to go, I won't. I was actually afraid you'd ask me to help you tidy up. With your mess, I really wouldn't know where to start." Vivian always looked glamorous outside, but her home was always a mess. If I didn't arrange for someone to clean for her every week, who knows how chaotic it would be here. I don't know how much time passed before I heard the sound of a door opening, and only then did I realize I had fallen asleep. I had gotten up at 3 in the morning to catch a flight today. I was just too exhausted. Suddenly, I remembered that if Sean, that jealous guy, found out I came back early and went to Vivian's place first, who knows what kind of scene he'd make. I quickly got up. Vivian, I have to go back now. Vivian came out of the bedroom, wearing pajamas. Do you want me to see you off? I gave her a sharp look. You're already in your pajamas, and you want to see me off? Am I even human to you? She tugged at my hand coquettishly. I stayed up late last night and got up early today. My dear Josie, I knew you cared about me the most. There was something familiar about her scent. Before I could think it through, she pulled away, and my gaze landed on a dark green item on the sofa. I casually picked it up. It was a tie, patterned with a design I personally created for my wedding with Sean, one of a kind. I stopped, looking at Vivian in confusion. She chuckled. Did you forget? The night before your business trip, we had dinner together, and Sean's tie was left here with me. Only then did I remember it was true. I complained to Sean. Why hasn't he come to pick it up for so long? Do we have to wait for someone to deliver it to the door? Don't you know him yet? The two of us can't stand each other, so it's best to keep our distance. Since you're here, just take it with you. After saying goodbye to Vivian, I hurried home excitedly. As soon as I opened the door, I shouted, surprise! Honey, I missed you. But what greeted me was not Sean, but an empty house. The house felt cold and deserted, as if no one had lived there for days. Where was Sean? My heart skipped a beat, and a flood of thoughts rushed through my mind. I suppressed my panic and dialed Sean's video call. Listening to the long ringing, my heart sank bit by bit. Just a second before the call automatically disconnected, Sean's sweat-drenched face appeared. I trembled as I picked up the phone. Honey, where have you been? I'm on a business trip. Something came up at the company last minute, Sean said gently. I figured since you're also on a trip, I'd definitely be back before you, so I didn't bother telling you. Why are you all sweaty? I tried to keep my tone calm. Just finished a meeting and forgot my phone. I heard your ringtone in the hallway and ran all the way back, Sean said, turning the phone camera to show the hotel background behind him. I breathed a quiet sigh of relief. I missed your call, but it's okay. Just call me when you have time, no need to rush. I don't want to disappoint my wife, he said warmly. When will you be back? Tomorrow. I thought about Vivian's boyfriend again and couldn't help but gossip. By the way, do you know Vivian has a boyfriend? I was at her place this morning and almost ran into him, but unfortunately didn't get a good look at his face. Aren't you two as close as one person? If she doesn't even tell you, how would she tell me? Sean's tone sounded very casual. Thinking about it, I didn't press further. Not long after hanging up, Sean's colleague called. Sister-in-law, Sean is on a business trip. He's worried since you're home alone. If you need any help, just let me know. It's nothing. I caught an early flight back today and plan to catch up on sleep this afternoon. There's nothing going on. Unless it's the end of the world, no need to come help, thanks. You're welcome, sister-in-law. Everyone at the company knows that Sean, who's cold, distant, and decisive at work, is actually a total wife's man behind the scenes. Sister-in-law always comes first. I smiled and hung up the phone. Just as I was about to lie down, the company called to ask me to come in for a performance review tomorrow. I rummaged through my bag and realized I had left the file folder at Vivian's place. I had no choice but to make another trip to Vivian's house. She wasn't home again, and her phone was unreachable. I had to enter the password once more, grabbed the file folder, and was about to leave. That's when I noticed the unfinished Changnan Wangji seafood porridge on the dining table, Sean's favorite dish. My eyes drifted to the doorway, where a pair of men's slippers sat on the shoe rack, the same size as Sean's size 45. Staring at those slippers, I froze. I didn't know what I was thinking. My mind was a chaotic mess. I shook my head hard, trying to dispel those aimless suspicions. It must be the lack of sleep making me overthink. Just a good night's rest would set things right. Just as I closed the door, the neighbor auntie from across the hall came over. Young lady, I think a package was delivered this morning, but now it's gone? I'm getting old, my memory's failing, and my eyesight isn't great either. Could you help me check the surveillance footage? It seemed the aunt had mistaken me for Vivian, and I didn't correct her. I helped her check the surveillance footage, but no delivery had arrived. Just as I was about to close the playback, the moment my finger touched the close button, a flash on the screen struck me like lightning, freezing me in place instantly. I slammed the pause button, freezing the frame, then tremblingly dragged the progress bar back, rewinding a few seconds at a time. In the footage, shortly after I left, Vivian smiled sweetly, linking arms intimately with a man as they walked out the door. That man seemed to sense something and casually glanced back at the camera. That face, so deeply familiar to me, those eyes that had gazed at me with affection countless nights, it was Sean. I felt all the blood in my body freeze, my mind buzzing. So the man who showered at Vivian's place that morning was him. He had never actually left, he had just been remotely controlling the door lock to make me think he was gone. Trembling, I fast-forwarded through the surveillance records. During the 2 months I was away on business, Sean had been living with Vivian. They came and went together, just like a married couple. My heart slowly sank. It was 1 p.m. on March 23rd when Vivian and Sean drove me to the airport for a business trip. At 2 p.m., the two of them returned home together and didn't leave until noon the next day. The drive from the airport to her house took exactly 1 hour. On March 22nd, the day before my trip, after Sean and I left Vivian's place, Sean came back at 11 p.m. and didn't leave until 3 a.m., wearing that dark green tie around his neck. On March 15th, our wedding anniversary, Sean stayed at Vivian's house for 2 hours. That day, he told me he had to work late due to an unexpected matter. February 17th, my birthday. February 10th. January 26th. The calendar pages flipped one by one, each pause stabbing into my heart like a sharp knife. I stared blankly at the surveillance footage, a ringing in my ears, my soul seeming to drift out of my body. Miss. What's wrong? The aunt's voice snapped me back to reality. I forced out a smile more painful than crying. I'm fine, I'll go first. Your boyfriend of 3 years, when are you planning to get married? The old lady thinks you two are a perfect match, and your children will definitely be beautiful. Plus, that guy is tall and handsome, he looks reliable. 3 years? Sean and I have been married for 3 years. Were they together before or after we got married? I could barely stand, only wanting to escape this suffocating place. I reached out to open the door, just then the elevator dinged, and Vivian's voice came through. She's napping at home this afternoon, so we can have fun. But after today, is it really over? Sean said firmly, I can't let her be hurt. Suddenly, I was terrified, unwilling to face the truth ahead. I released the doorknob and backed away in panic. But their voices kept drilling into my ears. Vivian spoke softly, these past 2 months, we've been like a real married couple. Having had it once is enough. This morning's incident was my fault, I was too careless. You know I absolutely cannot lose Josie. It won't happen again. But I can't control myself. I love you so much. I want all of your love. I know. Can you grant me one wish? What? I want a fireworks show. You've never told me you love me, even if today is our last day, even if it's just once, I want you to confess your love for me in front of the whole world. After a moment of silence. All right. Although Josie is still the one I love most, there will always be a corner of my heart for you. Hearing those words is enough for me in this lifetime. Vivian's voice choked with emotion. After hearing the bang of the door closing, I immediately rushed out of the room and left. I hailed a taxi and aimlessly told the driver to take me around the city in circles, 1 lap, 2 laps. My mind was overloaded, seemingly blank, leaving only an empty shell mechanically functioning. Miss, where exactly are you headed? You don't look well. Do you need help? How about I take you home first? The taxi driver looked at me through the rearview mirror, his eyes full of concern. I'm fine, master, please take me to the riverside. My scattered thoughts began to gather. That place was where Sean and Vivian had agreed to set off their confession fireworks, a witness to their love. I wanted to see with my own eyes how the man I deeply loved confessed the eternal corner of his heart to my best friend of over 20 years. The riverside breeze, carrying moist vapor, gently yet mercilessly brushed against my face. Passers-by around me excitedly whispered, "Have you heard? Someone booked the big bridge downtown today for a grand confession. The entire river area is closed to traffic. What a spectacle, TSK TSK. They say the fireworks alone cost over $5 million, plus $2 million for the light show. Renting the venue is another $2 million. Add in all the miscellaneous staff fees, and this night must have cost over $10 million. $10 million. These rich folks have so much money they don't know what to do with it, just wasting it all in one night. What do you know? This is called spending a fortune happily. This is romance. Don't you get it? Romance? Some kinds of romance are watered with the pain and tears of others. Listening to the envious comments of passers-by, I only felt waves of numbness, as if an invisible hand was choking my throat, making it impossible to breathe. At exactly 8 o'clock in the evening, the performance began. Brilliant heart-shaped fireworks roared into the ink-black sky, bursting with a bang at their peak, scattering countless sparkling stars that reflected on the shimmering river surface, and also illuminated my pale face. People are always like this, fond of using these fleeting, illusory things to symbolize love, to bear witness to that so-called eternity. How laughable it is. Look, look. Wow, it's so beautiful. The fireworks even have names on them. Who are these two? Love forever. Oh my God, the sense of ceremony in this confession is off the charts. Excited exclamations erupted from the crowd, a girl's voice standing out with enthusiasm. Look over there, on the big screen. There's a silhouette of two people. The man is down on one knee, holding flowers, they're hugging. Kissing. What kind of idol drama is this coming to life? Another girl's voice cracked with excitement. This has to be a proposal. It's so dreamy. Which girl could say no to a confession like this? This will definitely be a memory to last a lifetime. A memory to last a lifetime. I certainly will never forget it. Who would have thought that this dreamy, grand, and utterly romantic confession was actually their secret farewell ceremony for an affair? At that moment, a boat draped in white gauze on all sides sailed to the center of the river. Several drones buzzed in, circling the boat and forming a huge heart-shaped ring flickering with tiny lights. Countless petals poured down from the drones like a shower of pink petals, enveloping the two figures on the yacht in an exquisitely beautiful scene. Do you think those two on the boat are the protagonists of this confession? Definitely. Such a grand gesture has to be happening right here. Too bad it's too far away to see their faces clearly. Could it be that they're hiding because they don't want to be seen? Hey, why are you so cynical? They're putting on such a big show, there's no way they're ashamed. They probably just want to keep it low-key and avoid being disturbed. I stared at the yacht surrounded by the petal rain, recalling my first confession with Sean. After the college dance, he fell for me at first sight and clumsily tried to engineer various chance encounters. At that time, I was insecure and sensitive, thinking he was just playing around, so I rejected him repeatedly. The last time, he told me sadly that he wouldn't bother me anymore. As he turned to leave, a runaway car suddenly sped onto the sidewalk, heading straight for me. It was him who threw himself to push me out of the way, but he was hit and fell to the ground, breaking his lower leg and ending up in the hospital. I went to the hospital to take care of him, and in the process of tending to him carefully, I finally understood that this seemingly carefree rich playboy was serious about me, not just toying with me on a whim. I decided that once he was discharged, I would accept his confession. But on the day he was discharged, He pulled me aside and said that a confession couldn't be rushed, it needed to wait a little longer. The next day, he arranged thousands of candles into a huge heart shape beneath my dormitory building. He stood in the middle of the heart, surrounded by piles of Juliet perfume roses, loudly confessing his love to me. What surprised me even more was that the dormitory lights were flashing rhythmically, forming both our names. That was him mobilizing the entire school's resources. So many years have passed, yet his taste hasn't changed, it's just as flamboyant, only the scale is grander now. Miss, why are you crying? Are you too moved? Oh, don't cry. Such a beautiful moment should make you happy. Honestly, I think this scene is so beautiful, it makes me want to fall in love too. A passerby handed me a tissue and said with concern. Only then did I realize my face had gone cold, and I didn't know when tears had started streaming down uncontrollably. I took the tissue and wiped my face clumsily. Yes, I'm just too moved. Amid the blessings, gasps, and applause from the crowd around me, I simply broke down and cried out loud. At 26, I appeared to others as a successful career woman, sunny, cheerful, and efficient, but I had endured dark, sticky shadows. I grew up in an unhealthy family. My parents favored boys. After having a brother, they wanted another son, but I was born instead. Rather than raising me, they essentially found a free nanny for my brother. Since childhood, I had to take care of my brother's daily life, washing his clothes, cooking, running errands, all the household chores fell to me. In that home, I had no name, only labels like maid or loser. From countless wounds, I gradually learned how to protect myself and weather the storms. I thought the skies had cleared long ago. But reality dealt me a heavy blow once again. It's okay, though I can put my armor back on. Starting tomorrow, I will be the strong Josie again. Those who hurt me, I no longer want them. When I got home, I sorted through all the things Sean had given me over the years, one by one, and took them downstairs to burn them all to ashes. Back in the bedroom, I had a good sleep. I thought I would be up all night, but unexpectedly, it was a rare, restful sleep. When I woke up the next day, I was once again the decisive and efficient marketing manager of Hoya Technology, Josie. This performance review was a great success. I won thunderous applause with my outstanding performance and excellent results. As I stepped down from the stage, the applause was deafening. My direct supervisor, a mentor and friend who had given me much help and guidance in my career, came over, patted my shoulder, and said with a smile, "Josie, you did exceptionally well this time. There's a transfer opening at headquarters, to another city, in charge of a newly established business center. You turned down the chance to go to another city 2 years ago, but this opportunity is even rarer, with a bigger platform. You really should think it over carefully. Sometimes, life's turning points hinge on 1 or 2 key decisions. Boss, I've made up my mind. I'll go." Before, I was reluctant to leave City A because Sean was here, Vivian was here, and everything familiar to me was here. But now, what's there left to hesitate about? That's really great. I'll talk to headquarters. You'll report there in a month. My supervisor's eyes sparkled with admiration and expectation. After work, some close colleagues and I chatted about the move to headquarters. Just as we stepped out of the company gate, a familiar voice interrupted our conversation. "Josie, where are you going?" "I just got back from a business trip, and now you're leaving again?" Sean appeared behind me before I knew it, his face tense as he looked at me, his tone filled with unease and doubt. I signaled to my colleague to leave first. Then I turned around and said lightly, "It's not me, it's my colleague who needs to go." Sean was as considerate as ever. He swiftly helped me put down my bag and gently took off my coat. "I've got a surprise for you." He led me to the restaurant we often visited, the one that was notoriously hard to get a reservation at. Sometimes you had to book a month in advance. "I know the dishes here are mild in flavor, just the way you like," he said with a hint of excitement. "I bought the place, so from now on, you can come any time you want without having to book ahead." He pulled out a chair for me to sit. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, showing my approval. He seemed to sense my coolness and cautiously leaned in, whispering, "What's wrong, Josie? Are you feeling down?" I casually made up an excuse. This business trip was rushed. I pulled several all-nighters in a row, didn't rest well, just a bit tired. At night, the bedroom was bathed in a dim yellow light. I sat alone on the bed, staring out the window, my mind racing through the plans ahead. Suddenly, Sean wrapped his arms around me from behind, his warm breath brushing against my neck, his voice low and suggestive. "Honey, it's been so long, don't you miss me?" His touch instantly made me feel sick, the images of him and Vivian being intimate on the surveillance footage flooding my mind like a tidal wave. My stomach churned violently. I shoved him away abruptly and rushed into the bathroom, bending over the toilet as I vomited fiercely, feeling like I was about to bring up bile. He hurried after me, showing no hint of disgust, gently patting my back, his voice anxious. "Baby, are you okay? Did you eat something bad?" I accidentally vomited on his high-end tailored trousers, but he didn't mind at all, only continuing to comfort me relentlessly. My heart stirred with conflicting emotions. He was a neat freak, yet he could overlook filth for me. I truly didn't understand if he loved me, why did he cheat? And if he didn't love me, why was he so caring and attentive? I vomited until my eyes were blurred with tears, utterly miserable. He was very anxious. "No, I have to take you to the hospital." I propped myself up and hoarsely said, "I'm fine, just a bit of stomach discomfort. I'll be okay after some rest." With my insistence, he didn't mention going to the hospital again and stayed by my bedside all night. The next morning, Sean quietly approached the bed. "How do you feel? Are you feeling better?" "I'm fine now." "Still, you can't take it lightly. I've prepared some easily digestible porridge for you. Don't go to the office today, rest well at home." I nodded in agreement. As soon as he left for work, I rushed straight to the hospital. Sitting in the back seat of the taxi, my heart was heavy. Last night, I suddenly remembered that I hadn't had my period for 2 months. Because of malnutrition during childhood, my periods have always been irregular, so I never really paid much attention to it before. But now, an inexplicable unease surged in my heart. I'm really pregnant. Clutching that thin test report, my palms were drenched in sweat. This is a living, breathing life. In the 3 years of our marriage, we had always hoped for a child. We had countless times imagined what the child would look like, what name to give him, how to love him. But now, as this little life truly arrives, my relationship with Sean is already shattered. If I give birth to this child, I will inevitably be entangled with Sean endlessly, and that is not the future I want. Thinking of this, tears blurred my vision, and silently in my heart, I whispered, "Baby, I'm sorry. I decided to have an abortion. I really don't want to see Sean right now. I need time to heal myself and time to carefully plan the life ahead." So, I sent Sean a message saying I had to go on a business trip for a few days again. Then, I scheduled the abortion procedure. However, on the second day of hospitalization, Sean actually found me at the hospital. The moment I saw him, my heart tightened. Of course, he has contact information for all my colleagues. I once thought that was his way of loving me, but now I realize it's also a form of control. He stood at the hospital room door, his eyes red-rimmed, his face full of pain as he questioned me, "Why did you do this? Why did you abort our child?" I replied calmly, "This child came at the wrong time." Hearing this, his emotions flared instantly, and he shouted, "Then when would be the right time? You always ignore me for work, and now you don't even want our own child. I don't understand. I've been so successful, I can give you everything you want, so why do you have to struggle so hard? Why can't you just settle down and enjoy life?" Just then, his phone suddenly rang, interrupting our argument. He glanced at the screen and quickly hung up. I didn't even have to guess, it was definitely Vivian calling. He was about to speak, but the phone rang again. Sean hesitated for a moment, then said to the phone, "I'm a bit tied up right now, can you wait a moment?" But soon, the message alert sounded repeatedly. He glanced at it, his expression changing. He clearly couldn't sit still. There's an urgent matter at the company. I need to handle it quickly. I'll be back soon. With that, he hurried out of the hospital room. Not long after he left, I quietly followed him and saw Vivian waiting for Sean around the stairwell corner. Sean, I'm 3 months pregnant. That's impossible. We've always been careful. No matter what, you have to terminate it. But you and Josie haven't had a child, haven't you always wanted one? I told you, it's over between us. Don't ruin the memories we had. My child can only be Josie's. Maybe I would have felt touched by this before, but now, I just felt disgusted. But Josie doesn't want to have your child at all. She's completely focused on her work. Last time you begged her so much, and she still decided to go on a 2-month business trip. She'll never be your confidant or safe harbor, but I can be. Sean, this child might be your only one. I know you love Josie, and I won't interfere with you too. As long as you promise to let me have this baby, I will leave and go abroad. Josie will never find out. If you can come see us mother and child once or twice a year, I'll be more than satisfied. Sean didn't say a word. Sometimes silence is the best answer. I knew he was moved. A month passed in the blink of an eye, and the bell signaling the IPO of Sean's gaming company was about to ring. Today was also the day I was leaving for another city. Sean's family's main business was real estate, but these years had been bleak, already on its last legs, barely holding on with some old reserves. Now, the gaming company was the key to a comeback. His company combined gaming with AI, customizing experiences based on each player's needs. This innovation caused a huge stir in the industry. And his long-standing image as a devoted husband had won him countless female players' hearts, bringing massive traffic to the game. But all of this would eventually backfire on him. Over the past 2 weeks, I watched everything unfold with cold detachment. At the same time, I was quietly gathering evidence of Sean and Vivian's wrongdoing. Photos, videos, chat logs. I had compiled all the materials that could prove their close relationship. On the day of the IPO, I anonymously sent all the evidence to major media outlets and gaming forums, spending millions to hire online trolls to stir up the buzz. In an instant, public opinion exploded. The carefully crafted image of Sean as a devoted husband crumbled, and netizens condemned his hypocrisy and deceit. The game's stock price plummeted, and the IPO plan teetered on the brink of collapse. When Sean saw the infidelity evidence brought by his assistant, the usually composed man staggered and fell to the ground. He frantically called and messaged me, but I had long since blocked him. He abandoned everything at the company and rushed back to our home. However, what greeted him was only an empty room and a divorce agreement on the coffee table. With such a commotion, his career would suffer a severe blow. Our finances have always been separate, I only took my share. Before leaving, I met with Vivian. Vivian, I know everything. During these 2 months I was on a business trip, you and him have been living together, haven't you? Vivian's body stiffened for a moment, then she lowered her head, avoiding my gaze. She tacitly admitted it. When did you two start? Vivian's head sank even lower, and she still didn't speak. At first, you deliberately let me overhear you wanting a Hermes bag, right? Because you knew I would buy it for you. You planned everything, hoping I would just happen to catch you and Sean together, making it all look like an accident, didn't you? I struggled to control my trembling voice, but you didn't realize, although I didn't notice it at the time. Later on, I discovered even more. Vivian finally looked up, tears welling in her eyes. Josie, since you already know, that's fine. I really love Sean. You've been so good to me, just give him to me. Her tone was pleading, yet carried a hint of entitlement. I was stunned, unable to believe it. Tell me, why does it have to be Sean? There are so many men in this world, why does it have to be him? Vivian suddenly grew agitated. Sean and I were each other's first love back in middle school. We met first. It was his family who looked down on mine, and that's why we had to break up. You were the one who came between us. You're the third party. When you introduced us back then, he pretended not to know me, but when I secretly arranged to meet him, didn't he come right away? He still has feelings for me. And if it weren't for me back then, you would have married some drifter from the village long ago. How else would you have had the chance to meet Sean? Seeing her hysterical state, I knew she wouldn't listen to a word I said. As you wish. I don't want him anymore, and I don't want you either. 2 months later, my work and life in the other city had settled into a steady rhythm. When Sean found me, I was preparing an important project proposal. He looked utterly disheveled, with a scruffy beard and sunken eyes. I heard the family was deeply disappointed in him. He had been cast down and became the black sheep of the family. But it seemed he didn't care. He kept asking friends about me, desperately trying to find me. Josie, I know I was wrong. Please, give me one more chance, will you? He pleaded, his voice hoarse. I put down the documents in my hand and looked at him calmly. Sean, it's over between us. The choice you made back then has already sealed the fact that we can never go back. No, Josie, I love you, only you. Vivian means nothing to me. I was with her only because her family could invest in us. She threatened me if I didn't stay with her, she would pull the funding. I did all this for our future. I don't want you to suffer so much. I've already made her terminate the pregnancy, Josie. You know the only person I love is you. You love me too, we can't be apart. I cut him off. At this point, it's impossible. Sean, you don't need to say anything more. I don't want to hear it. He refused to give up. In the days that followed, he came to see me every day, blocking the entrance to my company, lingering downstairs at my apartment, hoping to win my forgiveness. That day, Vivian suddenly appeared before me, her big belly sticking out. Josie, why are you being so two-faced? Since you don't want Sean anymore, why are you still dangling him like this? He already has a child with me, isn't what you're doing going too far? Sean lied to me again, but my heart was already calm. Vivian, who was it that destroyed my relationship with Sean in the first place? And now you actually have the nerve to blame me? Sean has his own legs. Did I force him to come to me? You. Vivian's face turned pale with anger, and she was speechless. Sean, let's go. He doesn't want you, but I do. I've already talked to Dad about reinvesting in your company. The three of us will live well together. Vivian grabbed Sean's arm. I'm not going. Sean shook off Vivian's hand. Josie, are you really this heartless? After all these years together, can you really just let go like that? Vivian completely lost it, shouting, Sean, look at her, she doesn't care about you at all. Why are you still groveling and begging her like this? Sean didn't even look back, he shoved her away. Stay away from me. Whether you keep the baby is your business, I won't acknowledge it. Vivian's face went pale. She shot me a hateful glance and then turned to leave. But shortly after, Vivian actually got in her car and drove straight at me. Josie. Watch out. Sean shouted, rushing over to push me out of the way. With a loud crash, I watched in horror as Sean was thrown through the air. Vivian was sentenced to prison for intentional injury. And Sean, he was paralyzed. I went to the hospital to see him once. He lay on the hospital bed, his eyes vacant, the pride and confidence he once had completely gone. Sean. My heart was a tangle of emotions. Although he cheated, it wasn't a crime deserving death. I never thought of punishing him so severely. He turned his head, looked at me with complicated eyes. Josie, you should leave. This is my punishment. Forget about me. I knew that with his pride, he wouldn't bother me anymore. I silently left the hospital. I began to focus on my career, and years later, I had become a company director. standing by the office's floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the entire city. The road ahead is still long, and perhaps I will face all kinds of challenges and difficulties. But I am no longer afraid, because I know that what doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. My life is in my own hands.